Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am gonna give you a rundown of some of the best primers that I've used for my oily and acne prone skin. I'm also gonna fill you in on some of the not so fantastic primers that I've also tried out. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you keep on watching and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. While you're subscribing, also hit that like button. You know that feeling when you finally find a good primer that just works with your skin and you're just like, hey, oh, you just want to break out into a bit of a dance. Yeah, that's how I feel about a couple of these primers. I know a lot of people who are diehard about Benefit's Porefessional, and this seems to be a cult favorite amongst lots and lots of people. I have tried to love this product. I really have. I've tried to use it when I had dry skin. I tried to use it when I had super oily skin. I've used it in summer, spring, fall, and winter. And no matter what I do with this primer, it just doesn't work with my skin. While this does smooth out pores and it does have a nice flush tone to it, I find it makes me oily throughout the day. And I'm sure so many of you are out there going, but Dimitra, you can just use multiple primers. You don't just have to use one, or you can set it with a loose setting powder and then go with your foundation on top. There are a number of things that you can do. Well, I've already tried all of that. And the other thing is, I don't want to be the person who uses 5 different primers before I put on my foundation. I feel like my makeup routine already has enough steps to it as it is, so I only want to use one primer, and I do have several that work really well. So unfortunately, Benefit's Porefessional is a bit of a flop for me. But again, this also goes to show you that makeup is very personal. Everyone has to try something out to figure out whether or not it's going to work for them. The other primer that I have tried using is this one here from Makeup Forever. This is step 1. It is the smoothing primer. It's very similar to the Porefessional in texture and the way it fills in my pores. And it actually does do a really great job. It doesn't keep me matte though, very similar to the Porefessional, and I find this one actually ends up pilling on my skin, especially if I overuse it. So only use it sparingly and only put it on the areas where you actually need the coverage for your pores. But again, for the price tag, it's not doing a world of a difference for my skin. Like I said, it still makes me oily and it's just not a one and done for me. So this one here, I kind of throw into rotation, but it's not my go-to primer. One of the other primers I used to be die-hard about, especially when it first came out, and then, I don't know, my interest in it just started to fade, and it's just not something that I reach for anymore. I don't think for any particular reason, except that I've found better primers than this one. And it is from the Estee Edit. This is the Pore Vanishing Stick. And as you can see, this is just a basic stick primer, and it is supposed to be pore minimizing. It's supposed to smooth out your skin, really easy to apply, and you just put it in the areas where you need a little bit of extra help. I always enjoyed wearing this primer, but as soon as I started to discover other ones that were just a little bit better than this, I put this aside and I've just been using some of my other go-tos, and other go-tos that are also a lot more affordable. And I don't think you can actually get this in Sephora anymore, although you may be able to find it in a couple of Nordstrom Racks, maybe TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Winners. I have seen the Estee Edit pop in there a bit. The Hourglass Veil Mineral Primer is something else that I've also tried to love. This is on the really expensive side too, so I've only ever gotten these small samples here. They're usually 100 point perks on Sephora, so I've picked up several and I have tried this out a number of times, and while it does smooth out my skin, similar to some of the other products I've already talked about, it doesn't keep me matte at all. And truth be told, this doesn't do a heck of a lot for my pores, and it makes my makeup slide around so much throughout the day that even if I graze my fingers across my face, I'm gonna get fingerprints, and it ain't cute. I know a lot of people are obsessed with this primer, but it's just not one that I can use for my skin. Another primer that I used for a little bit was this one here from YSL. This is the Touche Eclat Blur Primer. It's supposed to be a blurring and illuminating primer. I I'm pretty sure what's inside this primer is not gold, and it is in fact glitter, and that is just something that doesn't really appeal to me. This does have sort of a weird gel texture, but it does really smooth out your skin nicely, but I'm just not a fan of putting straight up glitter like this on my face. It's just not good enough for me. God, that sounded really bougie, but that's to say that I have other primers that are just better than this one here. And since this one costs a lot of money, I'm glad I don't like it. Another primer that I bought, tried, and regretted not returning almost immediately was this one here from Urban Decay. This is the Optical Illusion Complexion Primer. It's supposed to be smoothing, it's supposed to be pore perfecting, and it has rose hip and argan oil infused in it. So it all sounds great. And when I swatched this in store, I was blown away by how beautiful it looked on the skin. It's got a pink texture to it, but the minute you start blending this out onto your hand or your face or wherever you're swatch testing it, it just blurs out everything and you're like, oh my God, there are no pores left. So based on that, I just thought, you know what, I have to have it. So I went ahead, I bought the full size, and you can see I've only used a little bit, but I hated the way this looked with my makeup. There's just so much silicone in this, and maybe this has to do something with the rosehip and argan oil, but it made my face such a greasy mess. And I don't mean a greasy mess 8 hours into my day. I mean a greasy mess within the first half hour of my makeup being on my face. This just did not work for me at all, and I definitely don't recommend it as a primer, especially if you have oily skin. If you perhaps have dry skin and want to give that a whirl, maybe try it out and then let me know what you think, but I can only tell you how it worked for me, and it just didn't work. One of the primers, however, that I did love for the winter, and I chose this because my skin was being really finicky this winter. I would have a really dry perimeter of my face, but my T-zone remained super oily. Although there were days where I would get really dry even in my T-zone, and I would really start peeling and getting sort of that scaly skin. So I had to exfoliate a lot and use more hydrating primers. And I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I did, and I did have ups and downs with it. I had to play around with it a lot before I finally figured out how to use it. Of course, I'm talking about this primer right here from Guerlain. This is the Blurring Active Base Primer. It's supposed to be smoothing, and it provides a blurring effect, and it's also a pore refiner. Of course, this has the signature Guerlain scent, and I absolutely love it. It's very florally. Some people call it like grandma's house, but for me, it's a very pleasant scent. And as soon as you apply this to your skin, it does smooth everything out, and it gives you a nice hydration to your skin, which I really enjoyed in the winter time. I did feel that this primer was a little bit on the heavy side, and when I wore it alone with foundation on top of it, it did not keep me matte. So what I ended up having to do with this one was powdering it down a little bit before I added my foundation to my skin. And this is actually something I picked up from Jackie Aina, your girl Jackie. She does it so much better than I do it for obvious reasons. But anyways, what she ends up doing is powdering down her face a little bit to set her primer before she actually goes in with her foundation. And that is the only way I could make this primer work for my skin. It is really expensive though. I think this was 50 plus Canadian dollars, so definitely up there in price. I'm down to my last little bit of this. I probably won't be repurchasing based on the other primers that I have and that I love, but this was something that was definitely worth trying out and playing around with. One of my all-time favorite hydrating primers, hands down, no competition, aside from maybe this Guerlain one here, but I don't know, even that feels like a distant second compared to this one, is the Hylamide HA Blur Primer. And this is marketed as a prismatic blurring surface hydrator. And it does exactly that. It is going to blur out all of your pores, but provide you with lots of hydration to your skin. And when I say hydration, I don't mean it's going to make you look look greasy, but it goes beneath the surface of your skin and just keeps it nice and plump and moisturized. Anytime I've worn this primer on my skin, I've never felt any scaliness. I've never felt any dry patches. It just seems to work really, really well. I really do love this primer, and it is sort of in the mid-range price range. Not too bad. I mean, the Guerlain primer is $50+, and this here I think is around the $20 mark. So honestly, not too shabby. The sister primer to this one right here is the Hylamide Matte 12 Primer, which I actually don't have right now, but it is my all-time favorite matte primer. If you have watched any of my foundation reviews in the past, up until maybe a month and a half ago, I always use the Hylamide Matte 12 Primer because I know how well it works with my skin. It mattifies everything, it helps smooth out all of my pores, and it just wears so well throughout the day. I'm not going to sit here and say that my foundation looks perfect from 6 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, but for the better part of the day, I'd say anywhere from the 8 to 12 hour mark, your foundation is going to look fantastic with the Matte 12 Primer. And it has a very similar consistency to this one here. It just feels like a nice sort of creamy gel formula. Okay, so it seems like I've just talked about high-end primers right now, but I do have some affordable ones that I'm going to talk about now. And the first one does come from e.l.f. This is the Poreless Face Primer. I did try this out not too long ago. I think it's only been a few weeks. Since then, I have played around with it some more, and I just don't like it. It makes my skin look really greasy. I don't feel like it smooths out my skin the way some of my other drugstore primers do. I also feel like this just has a really thick texture to it, so it feels like it just adds a layer to your skin rather than melting in with your skin. So for me, this is just a pass. The next two primers I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to lump them together because I'm still testing them out and I haven't formulated full opinions, but I sort of wanted to include them in this video just so you guys can see them and sort of hear my midway thoughts. And then I'd also love for you to give me your thoughts on these if these are some of the primers that you've used in the past. But I have been playing around with this one right here from Milani. This is the Primer Shield. It's a mattifying and pore minimizing oil-free primer. And then I've also been testing out this one here from CoverGirl. This is the True Blend Face Primer for oily skin. So far, both of these primers are on equal footing. I do like that the CoverGirl one is a little more on the liquidy side. It does mattify my skin, it creates a smooth base, and it does keep the shine away. The Milani one, on the other hand, is a little bit on the thicker side, and I think this one does have a little more silicone in it, but I think it gives me a more smooth base, if that makes any sense. So the CoverGirl one does smooth things out, but I think the Milani one has a bit of an edge, probably because it has a little more silicone in it. In terms of foundation slipping around or transferring, I'd say this one here sort of wins out in that department as opposed to the Milani one, but as I said, I'm still testing these two out. I'm not quite sure where they're gonna follow my spectrum yet, but one of the drugstore primers that I tested and I really enjoyed working with was this one here from Wet n Wild. This is the Photofocus Face Primer, and it is mattifying. I do really like this one. I feel like foundation sits really well on top of it. It has a nice, I don't want to say adhesive to it, but a really nice stickiness where the foundation just really magnetizes to it and it doesn't budge. And like it says, it keeps you matte throughout the day. Although for me, I can get about 6 to 7 hours of really nice wear with this, but then I start to get oily and I do need to do some touch-up. So that's just one thing to keep in mind about this primer, but it is one that I really enjoy using. Okay, so now we've come down to two of my holy grail affordable primers. You guys know I love my Hylamide Matte 12 Primer. I think the world of that one, but recently I have been enjoying these two primers here. I love this one from Rimmel. This is the Stay Matte Mattifying Primer. It does control shine, it minimizes pores, gives your skin a nice hydrating feel, and it just smooths everything out. And And this one here from L'Oreal, it's called the Infallible Matte Lock Primer. This also does an incredible job of just smoothing out your face, minimizing shine, and really locking in your foundation. Both of these primers are phenomenal. I always have my best makeup days when I do use these two here. The only difference between them is that this one from L'Oreal is a little more on the liquidy side, and I feel like it's just a little bit easier to smooth out onto your skin, and it doesn't feel like you've added anything to your skin. It just really melts in and starts doing work. But this Stay Matte one over here is a little more on the thicker side, but it does leave a very thin layer of primer on your face, almost to the point where you don't feel like there's anything on your skin. And anytime I have used these two primers here, they have just worn so well. I am just so incredibly happy with these two primers. They are holy grails. Thank goodness they're affordable. This one here even more so than the L'Oreal. I think this one retails for about $6.99 at the Canadian drugstores, and this one here retails anywhere from $15.99 to $20 depending on which Canadian drugstore you go to. I'm sure in the US you can find these a lot more affordably than what you could in Canada. If you asked me what my favorite primers are out of everything that I talked about today, I'm gonna say my Hylamide Matte 12 Primer is right up there at the very top. I also love my Rimmel Stay Matte Primer and my L'Oreal Matte Lock Primer. These are fantastic, and those would be my top 3 choices. And that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoy the rundown of primers for oily skin. I want to thank you again so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, and don't forget to add me on all of my social media. I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, and I'll link everything for you in the description box below. Also, let me know in the comment section what some of your favorite primers to use are. Do we share some of the same taste, or are there other ones that you prefer? I hope you are all having an incredible day no matter where you are in the world. Stay beautiful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.